compute, share. All right, can everyone see my screen?
You're good.
All right, cool. So just to recap, we're going to go over 6 effective branding brainstorming pro tips to develop a winning logo. And this is going to be part 1 of 2. So I'm going to continue this into next week. And I've broken into these 2 sections just so you can kind of comprehend and take away actionable items so you can kind of take steps and then next kind of go into the next phase of this. So I'm going to go into the first part, which is the overview. What are we going to cover today? So today we're going to cover writing down essentially 20 words. I'll talk about that, selecting your top 5, creating variations of those words, then coming up with naming concepts, then developing a name, and then checking the name availability. So in step 1, right? So writing down 20 words, this is something that most people, when they create a logo or create a brand, they always skip this step. And this is a vital step because these 20 words are going to be utilized not just for your brand, not just for your logo, but you can take from here and create mission statements, vision statements, taglines. So this is very vital to write down. And it doesn't have to be something that's like, you don't have to overthink it. Just throw up. And 2 hours may go by, you may come up with 5 more words, put those words down. 2 days may go by, you come up with more words, put those words down. So in this example, this is a user case example that I've actually, at the end, you'll see what this logo looks like from start to finish. So I put down publication, podcasting, smart, entrepreneurs, software development, so forth and so forth. And I'm just putting this content out there as it was coming to my head. The actual list of this turned out to be somewhere between 30 to 40 words that I just put down to kind of get from my head onto paper. The next part of this is step 2, pick 5. Now, the easiest way to pick 5 of these is to kind of just look at them and see, okay, which one really talks to you? Which one really talks to your brand? Which one really talks to your customers? Which one really talks to the service of your company? And pick those top 5. In this case, I picked the publication, podcasting, wizard as kind of like a playful word, marketing, and educational, right? Then the other part of this is then you need to run these words through multiple different softwares, or you can pick 1 or 2 of them to kind of see where is this word at as far as search results. So you could use SEMrush, SpyFu, Ubersuggest, Google Keyword Planner, and a very good one that I use just for a visual representation is Google Trends. So looking at this screenshot, this is just a representation of what Google Trends is going to do. It'll allow me to put in 5 keywords, and it's going to give me a chart to say, hey, in the last day, last year, 5 years, 6 months, whatever I put in there as far as the duration of time, what's the search results for this word? So just looking at this roughly, the green one obviously has been long running. It's been constantly, continually going up. The yellow one is doing the same. And as you dive into each one of these, you can kind of see like regionally, where is this word being searched for? And you could also do global as well too. And again, you don't want to go too deep into this, but you want to have a word that at least somebody is searching for, right? It's part of your branding name, because again, if you have a name that nobody knows how to spell or they don't know what to look for, then by default, you're not going to get any traffic. Step 3, creating variations. So in my words, I had picked out of the variations, the system that I use was I put like a survey on Facebook. I picked the 5 words, I put the survey up there. Which one do you like? I'm not asking for why, I just give the words and see who people and what they like. What are they selecting? What are they picking? So out of the words that were picked randomly were publication and wizard. So I just took those 2 words and I did variables: publication, wizard, wizard, publication. That's the only 4 variables based upon those 2 words. And then I'm going to take those 4 words and then I'm going to go into the naming concepting. All right. So if you have a time right now, if you want to, you can go to namelix.com. And it's a platform that essentially gives you branding ideas. It gives you naming ideas. There's so many different things you can do with this platform. But in this case, what I've done is I took these 4 variations and I put it through the process of saying, hey, I'm looking for a short name. I'm looking for a medium name. I'm looking for a long name. Then I click process. Then what it's going to do is going to generate all these random icons and names to say, hey, this is a name that you could possibly use. Here's the name. Here's an icon to go with it. So what does that look like visually? Well, this is what it threw at me. It threw at me a couple random, wizard billing, wizard grid. And then you're going through this process to kind of see what looks like your brand, what looks like what you want to represent you. Again, this is not, not designing the logo yet, but we're funneling into a system to create something that's going to have value in the long run. So in this one, I just circled pub now because, publication. I was like, oh, I could abbreviate publication. You're always looking to how can I truncate something? How do I make it less words, less characters, something catchy and simple to make where once you build the logo from it, it can be iconic, much like what I did with Boss Uncaged. So I circled these two because they're clean, they're sharp, and you notice that there's no icons. This is just the words. The next one, they gave me some more variables. So I like the stats wizard. It was a very clean, sharp, dynamic icon that I was like, something like this could probably work for a logo. The typeface is not the best typeface, but it was bold. And again, I'm just circling these to kind of collect data to say, okay, these are what I'm looking for roughly in a logo. This is not going to be my logo, but if I'm presenting this information to someone that's going to create my logo, it'll be helpful to kind of give them the direction of what you're going for and where you want to be by having concepts in front of you. The next is step 5, developing. So based upon looking at the ones that I circled, there's whiz, right? So I was like, oh, that's an interesting way of saying wizard. Again, looking for less is more. And then pub was this one. So I was like, okay, what would it look like if I did whip together? So I combined the two and came up with pub whiz, whiz pub, whiz stats, pub hero, whiz hero. Right. And then the next step of this is taking these variables and then checking to see if these names are available. Because this is the problem. A lot of people come up with these cool names and they're like, great, I have this name. I'm going to create all the stuff. And then the domain name is not available. Facebook is not available. It made mark. And then you have a whole issue. You spend all this time creating a name, creating an icon, creating an image, creating a brand, and then you have no way of using it because it's already being used elsewhere. So the next part would be going to name checker. All right. And name checker, the steps for this is really simple. You just come in here and you type in WizPub, right? So this example, obviously I already own WizPub. So when I ran it, you can see all the red ones are the ones that I already own. But that's a pro tip. If you come into a name and everything lights up green, everything has check marks, the first thing that you want to do in that moment is go and purchase that domain name, get Facebook, get YouTube, and probably get Twitter, right off the bat. That way, when somebody else is doing this process, right, because this is not necessarily a known process, but it is part of other people's processes. They will go in there and they will be like, oh, well, the .com is not available. The Facebook is not available. YouTube is not available. Let's look for another name, because they know trying to get those names is going to be difficult if somebody already owns the .com. So once you find one that lights up 100% green, that's your next step. You want to go ahead and at the minimum get the free items, which is the Twitter, the YouTube, and the Facebook. That way, when somebody else looks at it, it's going to be red and they're going to move on. And now you know you have a brand that you could then develop and create. So just to recap, the 6, right? You want to write down 20 words, right? And throw up those 20 words. You want to select 5 of those 20 words, and those 5 could be any word that talks to you. Then you want to take those 5 words, create a survey. Then you want to create the variations of the 2 top of those 5 that were selected, right, from your survey. Then you want to do the naming concept, which is essentially just taking the variables of the names that were selected. Then you want to do the name development, which you're looking for the icon, you're looking for names on that platform, like I did Wiz and Pub, and then I'm going to do combinations for that. And then the last thing you want to do is check the name availability. So going into like part 2 of this, I'm just going to give you guys heads up. So part 2 is more so like the branding methods. So we're going to go into like, what does it look like, the method to sketch out outlines and ideas, selecting colors, selecting fonts, developing an icon, developing taglines, and then finally on the last step would be laying out the brand elements to then create your final brand and logo. As always, if this was helpful, please, take a screenshot of this or go to this link. Let me know some insight, any information that you want me to add on to this. That way I can kind of give you more insight, more information to help you with your brand strategies. Do we have any questions?
I love this process, even though it's given me a few more gray hairs. I do. It's been fun. And it's been, when I did my brain dump, I ended up, I think, with 100 words on that first list. So I need to go back through and kind of purge. But that creative way of taking it through really worked for me. So I appreciate you for that.
So on that note, that there's a book that I don't know if you've read this, if you know this book, Essay Content DNA. But that's one of the sort of exercises in here. The guy who wrote this, John Asperian, is like a friggin' LinkedIn genius. And his whole thing is that you want to have like content pillars. You want to figure out what your content DNA is so that you have that consistency among everything, which is a lot of all the stuff that you're always teaching us. So that's one of the things when I read the book that I did to sort of get what those words were on paper. And that's also something that is really helpful for you when you want to update your LinkedIn headline, because it's really, really hard to just sit down and write it. But if you can just get those words out on paper, you can figure out what are the most important words that I use to describe myself, and then craft a headline utilizing those same words. So this is a book I really, really, really recommend. It's so, so, so good.
Thank you for that. I'm a book geek, so I'll have to pick that up.
Any other
Awesome.
questions?
Anybody? Kim, you kind of went through this process too. Do you have any insight or wisdom or questions?
Okay, I filled out, SA has this very thorough intake form when you work with him. So, and you'll have to remind me, did I do the words part of that? Was that on your intake form?
On yours, it wasn't, because we were not rebranding your brand. We were just
Okay.
recreating your visual for your brand. So the process is very similar, but again, we don't need to kind of go through that original part because we're not renaming it.
Okay. I think I still want to go through that. I mean, I really loved that because I think it will help me with writing some content.
With copy? Yep.
Yeah, copy whatever. Yeah, whatever the words are. Yeah, I love that idea.
Awesome. Anybody else have questions on branding? Anybody?
I feel lucky that I fell into my branding. I did it without having any idea what I was doing. So it would be interesting if I had gone through that process 4 years ago, where the differences would be.
Yeah, mine shifted a lot because my logo and everything has been established, but we're rebranding in a totally different direction. But that's because I've expanded into wealth consciousness. So we're trying to grow it all together, and somewhat making brand babies within my own company is what we came to the realization of. So it's been really fun. So how about we break out and you want to give us a challenge essay? Should we talk branding, or you want to do virtual coffees?
I would think like to Kim's point, like the 20 words. So like just talk about like, maybe the top 5 words that define your company. And then I think you'll probably be exploring words that you probably never thought of, and then let everybody else in the group hear those words and then give you feedback on what they think your words should be.
That would be very cool. That feels expansive. Okay, let's break out.